greeting in Spanish, you might say buenos dias, right? So for a greeting for my people, there's two words. Now there's one word that is the formal greeting that nobody ever uses, okay? It's, it's hesche. Hesche. Say it with me. Hesche. Yeah, so that's be like, hey, what's going on, okay? But nobody ever says that. It's very formal. It's considered almost kind of like, So what most people will say is, estongo. Say, estongo. Estongo. It is not spelled like it sounds. Don't attempt. Estongo. But that means like, hey, how's it going? How are you doing? Right? So instead of saying hello, you say, how's it going? So everybody you come up and say, hey, what's up, man? How you doing? Shake hands. That is a big tradition of our people. We don't greet formally. We greet very informally, even strangers. Okay? Now, among my people, it is very common to greet somebody by their skin or hair color. Okay, I know that sounds strange, but because all of my people were very, very dark skinned, okay? I didn't get that. I got the skin of my dad, right? So he's very fair skinned, but my grandfather was like the color of a penny, okay? So when they would meet somebody and they were fair skinned, they'd say, Stongo Hudki. That means you fair skinned, you white guy. You may not be white, may not be Anglo, but you're fair skinned. So they'd say, Stongo Hudki. Or they say, Stongo Jadi, which means, hey, red guy. That's how we identified each other. That's when they meet another Indian, they call them red. It's just what they call them. So we are people of tradition. That's one of my traditions. So Stongo to all of you. And your response to say, yeah, I'm doing good, is Hivli Mahi. And now that's a T-H-L-E, Hivli Mahi. That means I'm good. I'm doing good. And then we high five and we hug and you give me $1 million. That's my tradition. It's just, you have to observe the tradition. Okay? I'm kidding. So now that we've greeted and we know each other a little bit, right? I want to open up just for a minute if you want. Now, if we have any questions, I want you to save them for the end so we can kind of converse a little bit and ask some questions. That's perfectly fine. I want to address a few things. Now, Native people have been in the media quite a bit in the last 10 years for several different reasons. One is the mascot issue. Kansas City Chiefs, the Washington Redskins, okay? These to some people are offensive terms. Some of you might ask me even, what should I call you? Should I call you Native American? Should I call you American Indian? Should I call you Indigenous? Should I call you Native? What do you prefer? All right. I'm going to, this is me. This is only me. I cannot speak for every Native person, but I'm going to tell you what I know. I have never been to a powwow. I've never been to a sweat. I've never been to a reservation anywhere where anybody called each other, hello, fellow Native American. Hello, fellow indigenous human. We didn't do it. Okay? What's up, Indian? And we call each other Indians. It's just what we call each other, okay? So that is what Indian people call each other. It's not offensive to most Native people. Native or Indian is fine. American Indian is very controversial because we were here before America. Native American, again, very controversial, here before America, right? So Native, Indian, or Indigenous is fine. I just want you to feel comfortable. You can say any of those things to me, or you can just call me Indian. I'm cool. I don't care. I really don't. Or you can just call me Brian. That's fine too, So I wanted to get that out of the way. But the mascot issue, I wanted to address it just really quick because I want people to understand that it's an important issue. But the things that really affect Native people go much, much further than a mascot, okay? So for our people, the thing that is most damaging to the Native culture right now is suicide. Now, I'm not going to address this too much, but it's very common among young Native people, especially on the reservation. In fact, it's more common among them than any other people group in the country, okay? It has to do with the history, it has to do with the situation on the reservations. But what is becoming also more common among Native people is college education. Native people are right now among the highest rate of minorities going to college, okay? And they're finding their way into very high-tech jobs, STEM careers, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, okay? So for you young folks over there, y'all ever have any dreams of being STEM students, don't let anything, no circumstance can stop you, okay? Because my people, young people on the reservation, I want you guys to understand, they're born into a place where there's very little education, where there's a lot of crime, there's a lot of challenges, okay? But none of those challenges limit your potential. You can do anything you decide to do. It is completely up to you. There will be hardships, there will be challenges. None of those things matter. I want to tell you a story about my family. Now, in 1830, I'm not his biggest fan, Andrew Jackson signed into law the Indian Removal Act. Okay? This was a law, a federal law, that allowed Congress and allowed the United States government to bring soldiers in and force Native people off of their land into what is called Indian Territory, which is today Oklahoma, which is where I was born. Now, that started in 1830 and ran from 1830 all the way to the end of the 1830s, right around 1840. My family began their portion of the walk in 1835. Most Native people call it the Long Walk, or you would know it as the Trail of Tears. Okay, that's something you young kids might have heard in school. Have any of y'all heard that before? The Trail of Tears? You haven't heard that? Okay. Well, that's okay. That's all right. So the walk began, and as children, my great-great-grandfather walked from southern Georgia all the way north to Kentucky and then all the way west to Oklahoma. It was like 1,300 miles on foot, walked the entire way. And this is in the 1830s, so there were no bicycles or cars or anything like that. None of that existed. The men and women and children walked, okay? The only people riding horses were soldiers. Some wealthier Native people had horses, but it was very uncommon. My people were not a horse culture. We were not like the Plains people, with the beautiful war bonnets and were riding horses with big spears. My people didn't do that. If my people got on a horse, it would have been ugly. They were terrible horse people. So, now, my great-great-grandfather, his parents died on the trail. One of them died in Kentucky, and the other one, I think his mother died when she got to Oklahoma a few days after they arrived. They arrived in the winter of 1835, and winters in Oklahoma are very, very cold. So that first winter that they lived, let's see, ma'am, miss, are these your children? Okay. How old are they?
9, 3, and 1 year.
Okay. So my great-great-grandfather, there were 5 siblings, and the oldest was 11. It was her age. No parents, and they survived their first entire winter by digging a cave into the banks of the North Canadian River. That's where they lived for an entire winter. How old is this young one right here? What's your name? Mirai? That's your name? And that's beautiful, my goodness. And how old are you, Mirai? 7. So the youngest sibling was 5. 5. So the youngest one was littler than you, and she lived in a cave in the banks of a river for 3 months during the winter time. It was a rough circumstance to find yourself in, young people. It was a rough place to be. How old are you, young man?
13.
13. Okay. So you're right around the age. You're close. It's a rough place to find themselves in. But, and I'm telling you this because I want you to understand what you can do, what you're capable of. And you're 12? 11. Okay. So all of you guys are around that age. But in spite of all of this, in spite of basically living off of handfuls of dry corn and whatever fish they could catch out of the frozen river, they survived. My great-grandfather became the first postmaster general in Indian Territory. He also planted the first Presbyterian church in Indian Territory. He lived until he was 93. He was a very accomplished person. In fact, this is a copy of the Bible in the Muskogee language, my people's language. He was one of the original translators that helped to make this happen. Okay, he accomplished a tremendous amount in his life, even though his life really started in a cave on a river. So for you young people, I want you to understand that no matter the circumstances you find yourself in, it doesn't matter. You can accomplish great things in your life. Not the color of your skin, not your social status, not your economic status. Nothing can stop you. Okay? I'm telling you this because I come from low-income housing. I come from, my family was on welfare. My family, my dad wasn't around. There was times where we slept in our car. There was times where we slept in shelters. And I've been successful. I've raised 5 kids. I have a happy, healthy marriage. My family is whole. And so any circumstance you find yourself in, don't let it stop you. I like to give that message to the young people. Native history also includes some pretty landmark moments. So Native American people were not allowed to vote in U.S. elections. Now there's differing opinions on this, okay, because there was a law enacted in the 40s that said Native people could vote, but they had to be part of a federally recognized tribe. You could not be like a Native person who wasn't registered with the United States government in the Bureau of Indian Affairs, okay? So if you were a Native person, but you didn't have your card, you couldn't vote. Well, most Native people, because of their situation, economic status, or access to, they couldn't vote because they weren't registered, right? So, until the 60s was really when Native people started being able to vote on a regular basis. So, our word and our voice in the politics of this country has been almost non-existent. And that has led to a lot of situations with Native people that are challenging, but it's also led to us finding other creative ways to make our voices heard in the political landscape. So if you don't know right now, the Secretary of the Interior is half indigenous. Her name is Deb Haaland, and she has been making a lot of moves on the interior side of things over the national parks and things to help Native people keep from having pipelines run across their land, poisoning their water, things like that. She's been actually doing a pretty good job on that end. So while we found ourselves fairly mute in the process of becoming this modern culture, modern nation that we are, we've actually found ourselves ways in to be influential in that too. So Native history is also, I'm sorry, that's hilarious. That little thing is so cute. How old is that one? 6 months? 5 months? 1 year? My children are just huge, I guess. 5 months, I was like, sack of taters, good grief. Adorable. I'm sorry, I get transfixed on, I have grandkids, and I miss them right now. I haven't seen them in a while, so little ones kind of draw me. Anyway, so here we are in modern America. Native people are still here. We're in every facet of society. It's difficult to maintain our culture because in fact, out of the 10 most endangered languages on Earth, that means 10 languages that are in danger of going extinct. I think 4 or 5 of them are Native American languages. Because it's been one of them, the most endangered language on Earth right now is Navajo, the language of the Diné people. Because it's a very challenging language to learn, and there's not many people learning it in the next generation. So, let me ask you this. Of you young people in here, how many of you speak your parents' language? Good, that's really good. That's really good. If you speak the language that is traditional to your people, that's important, okay? Now, my nephews and nieces are all Hispanic, but any of them speak Spanish, which I was like, come on, people, it's important. But that's okay. Spanish is very accessible. You can go on Duolingo. There's all kinds of different ways you can learn Spanish. My language is not quite so accessible, so I'm still learning. So what you heard is about the width and breadth of what I know. I'm kidding. I've learned more than that. But it is very difficult. There's actually a college in Oklahoma that I can go to called the College of the Muskogee Nation, where I can learn the language, where I can learn all the traditions and stuff. But I don't live in Oklahoma. My son does. Anyway, so